Welcome to
Red Raw 777, and I hope y'all blessed so we could all ball and go to heaven. Yeah, I like to get into some Bible verses about my life and how if it wasn't for God intervening in my situation, I would have been found dead in the back of a trunk with my throat slit with a 38 bullet in my head, man, because I put myself in dangerous situations. It's kind of funny when I think about it, you know. I'm kind of like a coward when it comes to like doing honorable things, like approaching a woman the way like the old school cowboys would do it. But I was never afraid to drive up at night, approach drug dealers that I didn't even know, and ride around East Palo Alto back in the day, like around about a quarter century ago. I was a young man. I'd get my paycheck and hang out in the streets of East Palo Alto. And what got me ready for that was when I was a teenager, I used to watch a lot of gang movies like Boys in the Hood, Colors, Menace to Society, and I put all that into consideration, and I started gang banging at a young age when I was a real young man. And that's some mistakes, man, I made on my own, because as a teenager, I didn't listen to my parents so much to a point where they got involved too much in my life. By the time I was 11, 12 years old, I was really into the gang bang culture. I was really into gangster rap. And my dad took me to San Francisco for the Cinco de Mayo celebrations, and I saw a lot of norteños and sereños, how they gang bang, how they hang. And we walked around, me, my mom, my cousin David, and my sister Natalie, and my tia Irene. And we were walking around and enjoying the festival. But then after we split, my dad said, we got to go. We went somewhere. We drove to McDonald's, and we ended up in East Palo Alto, and he drove me right through the ghetto. He goes, yeah, I just want to show you, son, this is where you end up when you don't do good in life. And we drove right through a section full of drug dealers and gangbangers, like everywhere, man, on every corner. And that was 1992, when East Palo Alto was a murder capital. We didn't even know it was a murder capital at that time, because you don't get the census till like a year or two. I didn't find out it was a murder capital till 2 years later, 1994, when I was 14. But I grew up in San Jose, and what I did on the streets, man, is something else. My mom and dad, they raised me right, I guess. They did their best. But you gotta remember, I was raised in the 80s and 90s. I was a teenager all through the 90s. 1992, I was 12 years old. 93, I was 13. I started hanging out with the Sereños and banging with them. By the time I was 15, I dropped the colors, started banging my homeboys, Norte, and kicking it, with a lot of bloods and Crips all through the 90s, and Norteños through the 90s, man. And by the time I started hanging in East Palo Alto, I already knew about church. I went to church a few times with my friends in the late 90s. I went to Christian churches because I was raised Catholic, and I love the Catholic traditions, but there's no power. It's dead. There's no power in idols and traditions. There's only power in the Holy Spirit, so I knew something powerful was going on. I was a little too young to understand, but I just felt like these were the right people to listen to, but I just didn't have the discipline or the honor or the courage to be a really upstanding Christian guy, man. I was too shy. I was one of those guys that girls always considered me handsome and cute, but I was just not good with my words. I didn't have no words, man. Now I'm 46 and going on 47 years old, and I think I got a little bit more better mouth than I did when I was young. Back then, when I was young, I knew how to hang. I knew how to gang bang. Like I said, I wasn't afraid to go hang in East Palo Alto and go drink a 40 out there in the streets, get drunk, go smoke some crack, go smoke some weed, go tell the homeboy Cody Ray he was a straight up a criminal, man, a carjacker. He did home invasions, carjackings. He was what you call a bona fide rogue. You feel me? Which means bona fide, which means he was down for anything, man. That would include doing a murder, whatever. And I was pretty much a driver that gave him rides wherever, man, because I so much lost my place in San Jose. I got rejected because I just wasn't, smart enough or successful enough to buy a house, or I didn't even get a job. A lot of jobs I wouldn't keep them. Like I worked for the Hayes Mansion. I got fired for getting drunk and acting a fool. And when that happened, I was too ashamed to tell my parents, because they put me through Center for Employment Training to be a chef. I went there to that school to be a chef, graduated, I got a job at Hayes Mansion when I was about 21, and I only lasted maybe like 4 months. When I got fired, I started hanging in the streets with my homeboy Little Happy, and we were going to East Palo Alto all the day, every day, smoking weed. And then I got introduced to Gabi, Angel, Maddie, David, and then I eventually met this black homeboy named Cody Ray, and he put me in on a lot of stuff. Now, when I was in East Palo Alto, I realized back then in the early 2000s, I'll say 2001, yep, that's when I was there a lot. I was there like almost every day. When I was there, man, I realized a lot of things. I realized this is the end times. In 2001, I already put 2 and 2 together that, everything I was reading in church about the Bible, this was they talking about, man. This was the end times with all these drug dealers, homeboys doing drive-bys, all these chicks prostituting themselves. And let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, and I'm going to read. 2 Timothy chapter 3, and it reads, "Remember that there will be difficult times in the last days. People will be selfish, greedy, boastful, and conceited. They will be insulting, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, and irreligious. They will be unkind, merciless, slanderers, violent, and fierce. They will hate the good. They will be treacherous, reckless, and swollen with pride. They will love pleasure rather than God. They will hold to the outward form of our religion, but reject its real power. Keep away from such people. Turn to Proverbs chapter 27, and I'm going to read on verse 15, and it reads, "A nagging wife is like water going drip, drip, drip on a rainy day. How can you keep her quiet? Have you ever tried to stop the wind or ever tried to hold a handful of oil? People learn from one another just as iron sharpens iron. Take care of a fig tree and you will have figs to eat. Servants who take care of their master will be honored. It is your own face that you see reflected in the water, and it is your own self that you see in your heart. Human desires are like the world of the dead. there is always room for more. Fire tests gold and silver, and a person's reputation can also be tested. Even if you beat fools half to death, you still can't beat their foolishness out of them. Look after your sheep and cattle as carefully as you can, because wealth is not permanent. Not even nations last forever. You cut the hay and then cut the grass on the hillsides while the next crop of hay is growing. You can make clothes from the wool of your sheep and buy land with the money you get from selling some of your goats. The rest of the goats will provide milk for you and your family and for your servant women as well. Verse 28, Proverbs 28, and it reads, "The wicked run when no one is chasing them, but an honest person is as brave as a lion. When a nation sins, it will have one ruler after another, but a nation will be strong and endure when it has intelligent, sensible leaders. Someone in authority who oppresses poor people is like a driving rain that destroys the crops. If you have no regard for the law, you are on the side of the wicked, but if you obey..." Judges chapter 16 verse 4, and it reads, "After this, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who lived in Sorek Valley. The 5 Philistine kings went to her and said, 'Trick Samson into telling you why he is so strong and how we can overpower him. Tie him up and make him helpless. Each one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver.' So Delilah said to Samson, 'Please tell me, what makes you so strong? If someone wanted to tie you up and make you helpless, how could he do it?' Samson answered, 'If they tie me up with 7 new bowstrings that are not dried out, I will be as weak as anybody else.' So the Philistine kings brought Delilah 7 new bowstrings that were not dried out, and she tied Samson up. She had some men waiting in another room, so she shouted, 'Samson, the Philistines are coming!' But he snapped the bowstrings just as thread breaks when fire touches it, so they still did not know the secret of his strength. Delilah told Samson, 'Look, you've been making a fool of me and not telling me the truth. Please tell me how someone could tie you up.' He told her, 'If they tie me with new ropes that have never been used, I'll be as weak as anybody else.' So Delilah got some new ropes and tied them up. Then she shouted, 'Samson, Samson, the Philistines are coming!' The men were waiting in another room, but he snapped the ropes off his arms like thread. Delilah said to Samson, 'You're still making a fool of me and not telling me the truth. Tell me how someone could tie you up.' He told her, 'If you weave my 7 locks of hair into a loom and make it tight with a peg, I'll be as weak as anybody else.' Delilah then lulled him to sleep, took his 7 locks of hair and wove them into a loom. She made it tight with a peg and shouted, 'Samson, the Philistines are coming!' But he woke up and pulled his hair loose from the loom. So she said to him, 'How can you say you love me when you don't mean it? You've made a fool of me 3 times, and you still haven't told me what makes you strong.' She kept on asking him day after day. He got so sick and tired of her bothering him about it that he finally told her the truth. 'My hair has never been cut,' he said. 'I have been dedicated to God as a Nazarite from the time I was born. If my hair were cut, I would lose my strength and be weak as anybody else.' When Delilah realized that he had told her the truth, she sent a message to the Philistine kings and said, 'Come back one more time. He has told me the truth. Then they came and brought the money with them. Delilah lulled Samson to sleep in her lap and then called a man to cut off Samson's 7 locks of hair. Then she began to torment him, for he had lost his strength. Then she shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are coming." He woke up and thought, "I'll get loose and go free as always." He did not know that the Lord had left him. The Philistines captured him and put his eyes out. They took him to Gaza, chained him with bronze chains, and put him to work grinding at the mill in the prison. But his hair started growing back. The Philistine kings met together to celebrate and offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon. They sang, "Our God has given us victory over our enemy, Samson." So they ended up, killing him. But what I'm trying to say, man, the same thing that happened to Samson almost happened to me in East Palo Alto with all these drug dealers, man, because some really violent situation came to hand. And I got the F out of there, but my gang homies weren't feeling it. On Ralmar Street in East Palo Alto, they weren't feeling it out there in Ralmar Street. And, they wanted me dead. Some homegirl, a light-skinned Mexican girl, I was trying to, I was dating pretty much, try to set me up, say, "Hey, they got some weed out here, come smoke a joint." And my homeboy warned me, "Don't go there, man, because he got word that girl, that light-skinned Mexican girl, she's going to set you up, and your own homeboys are going to hog-tie you, put me in the back of my own trunk, my own car trunk in my car, and put a 38 slug in the back of my head, man." And they were going to hog-tie me. That's the key word. I almost went down like Samson, man, over a girl that had some drugs for me to smoke, man. And I thank God for my life, and I try to share my testimony with others. Hopefully they won't make the same mistake. But you got to remember, man, I did a lot of selfish, cowardice things, and the Bible says you reap what you sow, and I was about to reap death, man, because a lot of people prayed over me before all this happened. And even I had this friend, he was a correction officer in the Santa Clara County Jail. He used to go to one of these churches I used to go to, and I told him about this girl that I had a crush on in East Palo Alto, that very girl that tried to set me up and get me killed with my own gang homeboys. That very same girl, he told me, "Man, you could get better. Why you settling for that chick?" And I told him, "Hey, man, we have a lot in common. We like horror movies. We like music, same music. We like the same type of movies." And he told me, "Those are real immature things, Ross. You got to mature up." And, I was only 21 years old. I was a young man. I didn't know too much. And, but this guy is a correction officer. He was already the same age I am right now. I'm 46. I think he was about 46, 44, 43. He was around the same age. Back then I was, 21 years old. I was a young man in my early 20s. This guy was already, in his mid-40s. He was giving me a lot of good wisdom, man. So, shout out to Keith, man. He was a correction officer, and God bless him, and God bless everybody, man, that hearing this. But like I said, I've been held back by the system, and I thank God for giving me a job. I work as an auto parts delivery specialist, not at one of these stores, but like for a big warehouse. And I'm very grateful for my job. And I've been held back by the system, man, because remember, I'm a really dark complected Mexican. I'm a really handsome guy, But I'm just like, out of all the darkies, I'm one of the really good-looking guys, man. And I thank God I'm handsome like that. But like I said, I've been discriminated on by other Mexicans, discriminated on by white people, player hated on by black chicks, not black dudes, but black chicks, player hate, you know what I mean? And then EPA, the other cats, these other cats, they don't like you, man, just because they're jealous of you. So, and I never wanted to be hated. I never wanted to be player hated on, man. And people from the street, y'all know what that means. No one wants to get hated on, period. But, these really light-skinned Mexicans, the white-skins, they always thought they were better than us darkies, man. And when I take their women, they get mad, man. I had a really light-complected Mexican girlfriend, a couple of them. And but I had to end those relationships years ago. But I pray God will bless me with a really light-complected Mexican girl, man. That's so beautiful. I'm thinking, man, she has like roots to Zacatecas. I say that because all those people tend to favor their own light-skinned people. They really think they're. I've been in situations where they thought they're better than us darkies, man, and. But I know there's some good people out there from that state that have roots, Mexican-American chicks that have roots to that state, Zacatecas. For whatever reason, I don't have no roots to that state at all. But I got different roots to different Mexicans, and because remember, I'm kind of a black skin. I'm a really light-complected black skin, but I'm still like a really, really light-complected black skin. I thought I had like Native American or indigenous, and it looks like some Mexican black, But just because I don't have white skin doesn't mean I don't have white blood. I do have Portuguese, Spanish, French, and I even heard there's some Dutch blood in me, and I was like, wow. My Uncle Steve found that out, or someone in my family was gossiping about that, and they were saying, yeah, we got Dutch in us. I was like, wow, that's something else, man. And but I mean, I'm just grateful that I came out like this, man. I've been tested by some really devilish people, black, white, Mexican, all kinds of different colors. And one thing I don't like is hateful people, racist people, man. Because this is the Bay Area, San Jose. I don't know how San Jose just stayed racist like that, man. And there's a lot of gentrification in East Palo Alto, San Jose. And right now, the darkies are not having their way in San Jose. It's just a lot of light-skinned people, white people, light-skinned Mexicans. Everybody thinking they're better than those darkies. That's why I pray to God I'll get me my light-skinned Mexican wife, man. And it's to say, you know what? There is a God that's bigger than all this politics and gentrification, man, And all y'all people that are racist, you gotta stop hating on us Blaxicans, baby, because like I said, just because I don't have white skin don't mean I don't have white blood. Remember, I'm still a white man inside, which means I got game. And I'm gonna try to use my game for the gospel, man, because I know the devil's, I know when in this game, I'm a pawn in the devil's game, but I'm a king when God gives me the anointing to be that king, man. You see what I'm saying? We can't, let all these haters get in the way from us, This the day the Lord has made. Every day needs to be a good day. You see what I'm saying? But, yeah, man, I'm just praying that God will bless me with that really light-complected Mexican wife, preciosa. They call them preciosas. You know what I'm saying? I would say, man, one thing, I already had girls like that back in the day. I just didn't have a strong presence of God in my life like I do now. Back then I had a lot of malt liquor, smoking Mary Jane, and going out, hanging out in the streets. Getting my paycheck every Friday night, going out to East Palo Alto, getting a tall can or 40, some King Cobra, OE, snorting some cocaine and doing all this drugs, man, and chasing after the wrong girls. I ended up getting a Mexican lady impregnated over there, man, and because I didn't have no job and I was very reckless how I carried my life, she left me and had an abortion. And, it's a big failure when I sobered up and started thinking about my life, man, how I should have just treated that woman But now I can learn and say, man, I could do things different, because back then I didn't treat them like a lady, man, I just treat them like they was my homeboys. But there was a song, way old school song, that goes, treat her like a lady, treat her like a lady. And that thing stuck in my head. And that's what you got to start doing, man. You got to start understanding what God meant for women to play how they play. They're not meant to be like these street chicks, like that East Palo Alto chick. She tried to set me up like Delilah. I would have got my head busted up. I would have got hogtied with a 38 slug in my back of my head, in the back of my trunk. That's how they would have found me. And by a chick that doesn't act like a lady, she acts like a homeboy, because all she does is smoke weed and kick it with other homeboys. And these homeboys were supposed to be my homeboys, man, because we were out there hanging, banging, out there in EPA. I thought they was always going to be my homeboys, but when some violent situation came at hand, man, I responded in a really cowardly way, man. I was only a young man. I was drunk and I was dumb, man. And it condoned of a death sentence in that gang culture, man. So, yeah, I wish I would have did things a little bit better, man, and treat women better, man, because all this time I never treated them like that, man. I just treat them like they was my homeboys, because I didn't know no better. I just figured, hey, we all like horror movies, scary movies. We all like Bud, so I guess we'll make a good couple. Find out this be the chick that'll put an end in your life, man. So God created women a certain way, God created men a certain way, but He didn't create men and women to be out there in the streets acting hard and doing drugs. You feel me? So yeah, we got to start treating people with love. We got to start treating women with more kindness, man, and stuff like that. Be more sensible towards people that are not strong. Just like they said, man, treat them with love. And y'all have a blessed night. Peace.
God bless and peace to the streets.